Welcome to It Happened in Grand Prairie. I'm Ruthie Jackson, your host, and this is our history tape number 487. And this is the magic date that we're pre-taping this on April the 15th, 2003. We're very excited to have two wonderful people from the community of Grand Prairie, Texas, that are long time residents of Grand Prairie and are very important to making history, and they've made much history in the past. And we're so pleased to welcome, first of all, Angela Sutton Gessner. Angela, we're just delighted to have you with us today, my dear. And Mr. Ralph Gessner, wonderful husband, an aid and abetter. We're just so pleased to have both of you all as the guests today to talk about the history of the Gessners, and also to mention the background of the Suttons, because they're very important to the history also. And with your permission, Angela, let's begin with Ralph. And Ralph, if you'd look out into your camera and tell us a little bit about the real Ralph Gessner, about when you were born. Also, we'd like to know the names of your parents, including your mother's maiden name, and establish a mini genealogy for us. Would you do that?
Thank you, Ruthie. I was born and raised right here in Arlington. I was 1943. My parents were in business here. My grandparents were in business here. My mother's maiden name was Prairie, P-E-R-E-T-T. Her father had a furniture store down on the square in old downtown Arlington for many years. And my grandfather, who was a German immigrant, stowed away on a ship to come to this country. This was the promised land for him.
Yes.
Was a World War I and II U.S. Army veteran, and he had a business in Arlington here on old Highway 80, the Pike,
and that was
Dutch's Tire and Battery Service. He
How
was
wonderful!
There for 37 years, and my dad was with him some of those years. I attended school here, graduated from high school here, and attended old Arlington State College for a few years before going to Marchway School in Dallas. And that's pretty much my life.
Well, we're going to kind of divide that up a little bit and ask you a few more questions about your life. Let's begin. First of all, did you have brothers or sisters?
I have a brother, Kenneth, and that was, he and I were the only two children of my parents, and my brother Kenneth still lives here in Arlington.
Still lives here in Arlington. All right, and does he have a family that you love and adore?
Yes, he does. His wife, Jennifer, and they have a new son, Jason, who is was about a month premature and was born out of town kind of unexpectedly, but is growing and healthy and doing well.
That's wonderful. It's nice that you still have someone carrying on the family name here in Arlington, even though you've migrated a few miles to the east, which is lucky for Grand Prairie.
Thank you.
All right, and your parents, your dad was in the furniture business?
No, my mother's father had the furniture store there, and my dad worked with my grandfather, his dad, in the tire and battery business.
In the tire and battery business. That is wonderful. All right, and when you grew up in Arlington, where was the first school that you attended?
I attended the old cooking school. There were 4 elementary schools, and the Spear Elementary was built in the area of where Arlington Memorial Hospital is now.
Yes.
In fact, I watched the groundbreaking from the 2nd grade window of my classroom when the Vandegrift family donated that land for that hospital, and went to the only high school Arlington had, the Arlington High School, and graduated there in '62.
1962 Colt?
Oh, Colt.
Okay, now when you were in cooking, elementary school, and you first started, and your parents and grandparents had been here a long time, so you were probably well known by the teachers. And who was some of your favorite teachers at cooking that really encouraged you? And
Mrs. Polson. Her husband was a coach in the Arlington system, John Polson, and Mrs. Polson was my 2nd grade teacher. Very instrumental in guiding my pathways of education and learning, and kept my interest as a young man headed in that direction. And Ruth Ditto, who was her son is a physician here, and her husband was the first administrator, I believe, of Arlington Memorial Hospital. Ms. Ditto was my teacher, and I had run into her since living in Grand Prairie, and spoke with her on a couple of occasions.
That's wonderful. Now, from cooking, there was not a middle school. You went right on to the high school, or what?
My 8th grade year was the first junior high, they called it, and then went straight into high school from there.
Did it have a name, or was it Arlington Junior High?
Owsley. It was the old Arlington High School on Cooper Street, which now is part of the college complex.
Yes. And in that middle school, even though you didn't spend a lot of time there, were there favorite teachers or inspirers that
I had a coach there that I thought a lot of, and goodness, his name has just escaped me, that I could have told you on any other day. And I had a classroom teacher there for English, and I cannot remember her name. I'm beginning to lose names pretty quickly.
Welcome to the club.
I could pull out some old yearbooks and
yes,
probably recover that.
Refresh our memory. And from the middle school, then you went on over to Arlington High, and you became a coach. You have favorite teachers and subjects?
Well, it's interesting you'd say that. Mr. Key was vice principal there at the time, and Mr. Key was a Rotarian here in Arlington, and as I was the year I was president of the Rotary Club in Grand Prairie, Mr. Key showed up one day to make up, and
wasn't that exciting?
It was. He said he was amazed that I ever got out of high school, much less made it to a Rotary Club, and I hope he said that in jest, and which I think he did. But,
and your favorite subject at high school would have to be?
Well, geometry was my favorite when it comes to math, but I'm not a good mathematician. But I did enjoy geometry.
And then after high school, then over to the Arlington State College?
Arlington State. It had about a one-block campus here, part of the A&M system at the time. And I got what accreditation I needed to go to mortuary school, and it was about 3 semesters that I worked full-time and went to school here.
And went to school there.
And then went to the Dallas Mortuary School after Angela and I married.
And graduated from there, and then I'm going to leave you there for a moment because I've got to let Angela get caught up here. Yeah, we already had him out of high school and she's not born yet. Okay, Miss Angela, if you'd look into your camera and tell us about the real Angela, give us your parents' name and brothers and sisters, and when you were born, if you'd like to tell us.
Okay. Well, my parents are Durwood and Joe Sutton. I have 3 brothers, Craig, Marshall, and Larry. I have 1 sister, Jenny Dell, and I was born in Dallas, Texas in 1946. And my dad was originally from the Ferris Palmer area, grew up on the farm. Came to Dallas to go to business school, and met my mother during the war on a blind date.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, while we're talking about them, let's put the picture of your parents right up under here, and I think let's talk about them while you're holding that all of the time. Would you do that?
Well, this was their 50th wedding anniversary, and they were married 56 years before my dad passed away.
Yes.
My dad, when he was going to business school, started working at Grand Prairie State Bank. He swept floors and cleaned out spittoons and worked himself up to being president and CEO, and worked there over 50 years.
Oh,
and
that's a remarkable story,
really
isn't it?
Is. He had served in a lot of civic activities, was on the foreman of the grand jury that returned the indictment against Jack Ruby, was one of the first original trustees of the Dallas County Community College, active in the YMCA, Rotary.
Helped bring I-30
Scottish
through
Rite
there.
Hospital.
Yes, the toll road
was on the Turnpike Authority.
Yes.
Many organizations. Mother was a homemaker, but they both worked in the nursery of First Baptist Church for over 40 years.
Yes.
Mother worked with Head Start, worked with the Red Cross, and had her own civic activities she was involved in.
That's wonderful. Now, we've established your family as one of the first families of Grand Prairie, and there are many of us in Grand Prairie that are a little bit older than you are that remember with a lot of fondness the dignity and all the quality of life that your family had brought to the city of Grand Prairie, Texas. But now, let's get back to the real Angela. Okay. All right. You've named your brothers and sisters, and now we need to know about the schools you've attended, Angela.
I attended Austin Elementary, first grade. Lavetta Kimbark was my first grade teacher. Still alive, singing in the choir at First Baptist Church.
Sings beautifully in your choir, yes.
The second year, they condemned the old Austin, and we went half days to Houston Elementary while they built the new Austin school.
Okay.
And then third grade on, I completed my elementary school there.
Okay. Any other favorite teachers at Austin that you can remember?
There were a lot. Of course, Irvin Witt was our principal,
Okay.
and Mrs. Hall was there. Evelyn Moody. There were just many wonderful teachers that had influence on my life.
And when you had to leave Austin,
Went to Lee Junior High.
Lee Junior High. Okay, that's when we had a junior high, wasn't
That's when we had a junior high.
it? Okay. Now, leaving Austin and going all the way across the tracks over to Lee, was that pretty much of a trauma for Angela?
Not really.
Yeah.
Not once you got the first week past. You know, it wasn't that bad. It was exciting,
A lot of your classmates went with you.
of course.
Yes,
There
yeah.
were only 2 junior highs back then, Lee Junior High and Jefferson
And Jefferson
Junior High.
Junior High. Okay.
So,
Now let's talk a little bit about Lee Junior High. You've given an A+ to Austin, but now let's talk about Lee.
Lee was a great experience. I was trying to think some of my teachers' names that were there. Of course, Geneva Lee
Yes.
was one of my English teachers there, and I had a Mr. Fuller for algebra, and he was wonderful. I believe he was Ray Fuller's brother.
Yes.
And he was very patient, and I was appreciative of that in the math area.
In the math area.
And of course, well, I'm having a senior moment.
Well, did you have any favorite subjects that were you a cheerleader? Were you into athletics or anything?
I was on student council.
Student council,
and
okay.
active in that. Always active in that. Probably my favorite subjects were homemaking and history.
And history. Okay. And then from Lee to
Grand Prairie High School, which
the
was
Gopherland.
the only high school in Grand Prairie at that time.
The little red building? Was it
No, it was the
white building
on High School Drive.
on
yes.
High School Drive?
Yes.
Okay.
The year
I didn't think you stretched back that far.
Right. The year I was a senior, though, they did build the Chambers Auditorium.
Okay.
That year.
Okay, and so to Grand Prairie High School, you met all of the Jeffersonites and everyone that came and melded, going to the big high school, the only one in Grand Prairie, Gopherland. What was that like for an experience?
Well, it was really great getting to meet a lot of new people. We had some people that had attended Catholic school that became my friends that
Yes.
went to school there as well, and I became active in student council there.
So you were student council. What else at high school? Favorite teachers and subjects?
Oh, my favorite teachers, goodness. Of course, Ann Ware was one of my favorite, and Verena Hyatt.
Yes.
My homemaking teacher was Mrs. Hodson. She was a very sweet lady, and I was a state officer for the Future Homemakers and got to attend a lot of different conventions in that area.
Okay.
So I stayed pretty busy.
And were you into any of the sports or athletics or cheerleading and football and all of this?
I was not a cheerleader, but I was active and attended games and so forth, but didn't play volleyball, but not basketball or anything like that.
Okay.
I'm not real sure what we had for the
Were you in
ladies
any
back
of the
then.
plays or the music or?
No, I wish I would have been under Earl Tom Kill. He was wonderful, but I'm sorry, I just was not talented in that area. We had a lot of wonderful classmates that were, though.
Yes. Okay, and then from, since we have you out of high school now and you graduated in the magic year of
1964.
1964, you and Kim Thorne also.
That's right.
Yes.
Graduated, 2 weeks later turned 18, 2 weeks later married my husband.
Oh, all right. Now we're going to have to tell about what brought him to Grand Prairie. Where did you meet him?
I went to school with his cousin, Sandra Kurth. She and I graduated together, and Sandra's mother and my husband's mother were twins.
I see.
And she kept telling me, I want you to meet my cousin, I want you to go out with my cousin. And
Yes. So they made those arrangements.
She made those arrangements, yes.
Matchmaking already.
It just took one date, and that was it.
That was it.
That was it.
And your first date?
Was January of 1964.
And where did you go?
We went to the show in Fort Worth.
I see.
Which was an experience because when you lived in Grand Prairie, most of your dating, if you went to Dallas to the theaters there, so I was not accustomed to the Fort Worth area at all.
So he took you out of the territory
Yes,
over to
he
Fort
did.
Worth, Texas.
He did. He
Okay,
really did.
all right. But you didn't know each other in school.
No.
When y'all were going to school.
No.
Now that's unusual, isn't it?
Well,
that is great.
Yeah, we didn't. It was just probably, I'm not sure. I think I may have met him my junior year, but we didn't. Just in being with their families, I'd met him, but we really didn't date until my senior year.
And after you married, did you become a homemaker, or were you scheduled to go to work?
No, I worked at Grand Prairie State Bank, the original Grand Prairie State Bank down on Main Street.
Okay.
Until we started our family about 2.5 years later, had our son.
And now, what did you do at the Grand Prairie State Bank? Now, I know that your dad, was he the president there then?
Yes, he was.
Oh, that was great to have that experience, to work under the tutorage of your father.
It really was. It's very, very educational to learn how he treated people.
That was what was
outstanding. He knew how to read people with just a handshake, and I don't think you have that anymore.
Yes.
And that's sad.
That's wonderful. And at Grand Prairie State Bank, what did you do?
Well, I was assistant cashier, and my duties consisted of many. We worked in the new accounts area. I handled the government deposits that came in. I was assistant to some of the officers, so we wore a lot of hats.
Okay, I'm going to leave you here at the Grand Prairie State Bank getting ready to go home and do babies for us.
Okay.
But I've got to get back with Ralph.
Okay.
Now, Ralph, after you all married, what happened to Ralph?
Well, Ralph continued on to mortuary school, and some friends that I had that I worked with at Arlington in the part-time job that I worked at the Moore Funeral Home here for several years while finishing up high school and the first 2 years in college, year and a half. Bruce Bean and Duke Burge and Olin Massey had started a funeral home in Grand Prairie, and I joined them there, and we all went to mortuary school, staggered as we worked right there at the Old Southland Funeral Home.
And it was Old
Southland
Southland
Funeral Home.
Old Southland.
put in
Okay, that's on
26
3rd Street.
26 years I put there.
26 years with Old
The
Southland.
original one was on
Well,
Main
originally we
Street,
were down in
where the Brown Funeral
the
Home
old-
is now.
Oh,
the
yes,
funeral home.
yes.
And spent that 26 years there working and living
Okay.
in Grand Prairie and enjoying every minute.
Yes, and all of this time, name me some of the other people that you worked with in your funeral
Oh goodness!
experience.
Of course, the principals there that I was with were Olin Massey and Duke Burge and Bruce Bean, and we had just numerous. In those days, the only ambulance service the community had was funeral homes,
I
and
see.
we had the only one for about 14 of those years, as you well know.
Only ambulance, 14 years.
And it was a long, arduous task to try to maintain that, and across the country that began to be a problem, that the technology had changed so much
Yes.
that it was a long time coming, but we ultimately was able to allow that out of the funeral home business, and the hospital took the ambulance service immediately at the time. And,
We're going to leave you at Old Southland. We're going to get back with Angela. And after raising babies and going back to work, where did you go after Grand Prairie State Bank?
I went back to Grand Prairie State Bank for a while, and then I moved to, I think when I changed banks, it was probably Republic Bank.
Okay.
Previously had been Midway. While I was there, 5 years, it changed to First Republic, then NCNB, and when I left in August 1st of 1989, it had just changed to Nations Bank, and now it's Bank of America. And you see why I got out of banking.
But the wonderful part is you have a brother that is continuing on in your father's footsteps with what was the Grand Prairie State Bank that is now, I believe, the Grand Bank of Texas.
That is correct.
And I believe they have 3 different banks, one on South Belt Line, one on Carrier and one at I-20?
That's correct. They're about to open the third location.
Don't you know your dad's buttons are just popping off in heaven? Yes.
Yes. I do have another brother, Craig,
Yes.
who's with the Northern Trust Bank at Park Cities in Dallas.
Well, he's carrying on in the
So
tradition.
he's
isn't he?
carrying, yes, he is.
Oh, that is really great. That's wonderful. And after you left Nations Bank in '89, where'd you go?
Well, Ralph and I decided that we were going to go into business for ourselves. It's something that we had considered in the past, and we opened a farmers insurance agency.
Okay.
Opened the door August 1st, 1989.
Aren't you braver than Dick Tracy, a young lady, to be a lady in business, an entrepreneur, one of the first, I believe, in Grand Prairie women to start her own insurance business?
The first day I walked in and opened the door, the phone was ringing. It was my dad, and it was like 2 minutes after 9. Where are you?
Why
You're
aren't
late.
you there on
Why aren't you
time?
there?
Yeah.
And I look back on it now and go, you know, what did I do? But
Yes.
you don't think about that. You just think the Lord has you there for a purpose, and you do what you feel like you can do, serving the people and the community.
And you graduated him from mortuary
That's right.
activities into the insurance business, which is 9 to 5 and doesn't have to drive the ambulance, right?
That's right.
Ralph, tell me what it's like working with your wife so closely all of these nights and days.
Well, she keeps me in an office at the back of the building, so
Oh, I see.
I don't get underfoot very often. But it's very good. Our son is also there with us, and we enjoy being able to work together. And since '89, we've worked together when we started, and we all have our own responsibilities and duties, as do most family-oriented businesses, and we enjoy working together. And we do like the 9 to 5 because. And it's not necessarily 9 to 5 all the time, but it's better than the 24 hours a day, 7 days a week that I spent in
Yes.
those years.
Well, we know you have to work for a living to be able to eat, but outside of that, you've been really wonderful to the city of Grand Prairie. I know that you have served on the city council, filling out unexpired terms and doing many other things, many other organizations, and of course you have your church work. Tell me what you do with your time so that the people in video land will know that you don't just sit out there in that back office and wait from 9 to 5. Tell us what's made your life, Ralph?
Well, I have a hobby that I've been interested in most of my life, and it's probably unusual. I restore old vintage radios, and I have a shop there at the house, and I find very little time to be able to do it, and I have many friends' radios waiting in line. I never had the opportunity in the 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week funeral business to play golf, and since I have done that, Dr. Poteet, who retired from First Baptist, and I have found a way to sneak away and play some golf along with Reg Crump and Nubbin Jones. We do that 1 day a week.
Okay.
That's all we punish ourselves with. But I have enjoyed that, and that's one of the things that I do and enjoy with friends. And the grandkids are
man.
the premier enjoyment.
Are you going to name them, or is Angela going to name the
Well,
grandchildren?
Grandma, I think, is supposed to do that.
All right.
Leave that privilege to her.
We're going to leave that to you, but I want you to continue telling me you've been president of Rotary, you've done all of these other good things in town, and have served on the council. What's it like to be called on to do all of this good stuff?
Well, it was an unusual chore, as you well know, because you were there at the time, and I was called in the middle of the night, and the mayor at that time had said that, I think publicly, that I must have thought that someone had passed away, calling me at 1 o'clock in the morning. But I was flattered that I would be asked, and I enjoyed serving. It was not a job I wanted full time. I didn't have the tenacity like some of you folks who give so much, but I did enjoy that. And I had on numerous occasions had served on several city boards, and the Rotary Club had been a big part of my life for some 24 of those years.
And church.
And church.
And Angela.
And Angela, and those grandkids.
And the grandkids. All right, Angela, we've got to get to the grandkids before we get all of the things you've been president of and currently are president of. So name the grandkids for us.
Our grandchildren are Chad Evans, who's 6, and our only granddaughter is Bailey, who will be 4 in May.
Yes.
And they belong to our daughter Janeth Evans and
Yes.
her husband Vaughn. And then Greg and Kelly, our son and daughter-in-law, have our twin grandsons, which will be 3 in July. and they're Jake and Will.
Oh, and that's staying in the traditional pattern, yes. Yes,
Certainly
family.
is.
That's wonderful. And I know that we hear so much about the twins. We hear more about them than the others because they're current. And but now we need to talk about the real Angela and what you do in the community.
Well, let's see. Where do I start? Right now, I'm president of Seroptimus International for my third time. I just completed a term on the Dallas County Historical Commission. I've been on the Grand Prairie Historical Commission and a member of the Grand Prairie Store Organization, on the board of the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club, Joe Barton Steering Committee, Ray Allen Steering Committee. Oh goodness. Try to be active in church. Been on some committees there. And I'm sure there's some other things
And of all of the things that you do for the community, I know that you've been an outstanding leader in the Seroptimist, and we're so pleased that you are the president during the time when we did happen to take over the Girls of the Month and the Boys of the Month, which is one of my favorite things in the whole world. And we appreciate so much all of the things that are going on in your Seroptimist. What do you do at Seroptimist?
Well, we have a lot of service projects. We have our A Awards and, of course, the Girls of the Month, which I have a special kinship to because when I was growing up, I was the Girl of the Month from the junior high and high school. And it recognizes young ladies who are future leaders and inspires them to carry on.
That's wonderful. Well, in the 2 minutes we have left, I'd like for you to look out into your camera and just say anything you'd like to about Grand Prairie. I'd like for you to just say that whether you like it or don't and how long you're going to stay here with us.
Well, that's up to the good Lord, but of course I've loved Grand Prairie. I grew up here. I raised my family here. Some of my family has stayed. My son and his wife are raising their children here. It's just, it still has that warm, small town community flavor to it. It's wonderful having roots.
Yes.
And being around people that you've grown up all your life with. A lot of good mentors.
A lot of good mentor. Ralph, I know that we haven't given equal time to your family here in Arlington, but since we're really centering in on your family and y'all are just a part of the bedrock of the Grand Prairie community in Grand Prairie, Texas, I want to thank both of y'all so very much for allowing us to delve into your past and into the current things that are going on and share your lives with the people of Grand Prairie on our history tape. And in probably a half minute, they're going to show a picture and run the credits over that. Tell me what that picture is, Angela. Half a minute.
Okay, it was a family picture taken at our daughter's wedding about 7 years ago.
And it has just almost all.
Almost all. That was before.
Who's missing?
Our daughter-in-law Kelly, our twin grandsons.
Are not in this picture, so they're going to use their imagination. I want to thank y'all once more for being here.
Thank you so much for having us.
You bet, you bet. And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do.